Hi, I'm attorney Keith Johnson, and welcome into the Lawyer's Lounge. This is our initial episode, and I thought that it would be appropriate to title this The Art of Being a Criminal Defense Attorney. You know, it's a job that a lot of people have an interest in, and I understand. It seems to be very sexy sometimes, dangerous, and quite stressful. And Hollywood puts a spin on it. We have so many shows that talk about what it means to be a defense attorney, whether that's Lincoln Lawyer, Reasonable Doubt, Criminal Minds, Boston Legal, and we all remember Law and Order. But there's more to it than the Hollywood court scenes, where the witness comes up and he's a surprise witness with a surprise piece of evidence. It's a grind. It's a lot of bad news sometimes. It's a lot of pressure. So we'll peel back the layers of the onion to see what it is that makes it an art versus a science. But first, I want to start with our question for the day, which is, what is your gift to the world? I know it may sound cheesy, but we all have a gift that God has given us to share with others. I think our job is to recognize what that gift is and to, once we identify it, take care of it so that it can develop and produce more results and help more people. It took me a little while to realize what my gift was, and it was a little tricky. See, I grew up in the church. I grew up saying speeches. My dad would enroll me in these youth programs where I would have to recite Bible verses like the 23rd Psalms and pray in public, even from the age of 5, 6 years old. And everybody always told me I did a good job. I didn't believe that, because when I got to school and I had to read aloud, I developed a stutter, a nervous stutter. And so I didn't recognize that I had any kind of gift of public speaking until I got much older. But I had to confront a challenge to receive the fullness of the gift that I have. And that's the gift to represent people, to use words to have meaning. And so, hey, I have a gift that I now have to take care of, and it's carried me through my adult life. So my challenge to you is to think about, what is your gift? Are you developing it? Do you even recognize it? Here are some ways to really understand what your gift is. Well, first, it comes easy. Think about it. When you receive a gift, you don't have to beg for a gift. You shouldn't have to. You don't buy your own gift. It's given to you. You didn't earn it. It's a gift. So the gift comes, and it's something that you do naturally. You may not pick up on it at first, but it's something that flows. That's the first sign. The second sign is that it's going to come with a little bit of adversity, because you're going to have to show that you are willing to recognize your gift in order for it to be fully developed. Nothing worth having comes too easy. And so the challenge for all of us is to develop our gift, to give to the world, to help other people. If we decide to do that, then you're living on purpose and you're living with purpose. My first memory of a badass defense attorney was Johnnie Cochran. I remember being 11 years old during the O.J. Simpson trial, and I was fascinated by it. I probably shouldn't have been watching it that young, but hey, it was a different day, a different time. But I remember watching it all summer with my mother and my grandmother, who was visiting us for the summertime. And that was my first glimpse into the legal process. I really didn't understand fully what I was looking at, but I knew that this was a big case. I knew that this football player, who I never saw play, was in a lot of trouble. And I knew that he had a team of attorneys who were representing him. And I knew that he had a lot of money to have that many attorneys. I did know that. But there was one attorney who was the lead dog of the pack. And it was the great Johnnie Cochran. He had a presence about him. He had a confidence when he walked into the courtroom. And I must admit, he had style. Go back and look at some of those suits Johnnie was wearing. His tie was matching. His pocket square was crisp. He presented himself in a way that showed that he had confidence and a belief in himself. And I remember seeing that, thinking, wow, this guy is sharp. He made these objections. He could capture the jury. And the moment I think of the trial, and maybe of the 20th century, as we talk about courtroom drama, was orchestrated by Johnnie Cochran. So the whole case was about the evidence that was found. And you have to take the evidence head on when it's against you. You can't act like it doesn't exist. And Johnnie did that brilliantly. He did it when he took the glove that was found at the crime scene, allegedly, and he made a spectacle of it. He had his client try on the glove in front of the jury. And man, was that a make or break moment. Because a picture is worth 1,000 words. But what's a visual worth? And so his client, who he knew had rheumatoid arthritis, swollen hands, who he knew was a former football player, injuries to his hands, he tried to put on this glove. And the glove literally would not go on. Even as the prosecutor said, he needs to stretch out his fingers. It didn't go on. And you could see OJ trying to put the glove on his hand. What a moment for TV. What a bad moment for the prosecution. The case was over at that point. And my man Johnnie took it a step further in his closing argument. He said, if it doesn't fit, you must have quit. I didn't know I wanted to be a defense attorney at that time, but looking back on it, that was my inspiration. How his words, his actions, regardless of how you feel about the verdict, I'm not here to go back in time. The jury's verdict has to be respected, even when you don't agree with it. But it was a pivotal moment, show how the art of being a criminal defense attorney can change lives. It's not a science. It's not a 1 + 1 = 2. Because my 1 + 1 might equal 3. And that's what people pay for. So Johnnie Cochran was the first example of what I would consider to be a magician. Rest in peace, Mr. Cochran. So I never grew up wanting to be an attorney at all. It was the furthest thing from my mind. Had wonderful parents. My mother was a high school English teacher. My father was in the insurance industry. And so I had a great foundation, but I never wanted to be a lawyer. I was an athlete growing up. I went to college at Furman University where I played defensive back. And while there, I was bit by the law bug. Law school was a grind. Up in Michigan, at Michigan State, it was cold, it was gray, and it was the perfect environment now looking back on it for me to get away and for me to really, really learn. But it's a grind. And while law school is great, I have some great classmates that I still keep in touch with. Shout out Antonio, the best criminal defense attorney in Fayetteville, North Carolina. But it still was not able to prepare you for the practice of law. Because the practice of law is not just the theory, but it's dealing with people, it's handling pressure in various situations. One of the things that you have to be good at as a defense attorney is delivering bad news. I take no pleasure in delivering bad news, but it's just like an oncologist. You have to deliver news that could be unfortunate. So my job is to first make sure that my client knows I have one rule and one rule only. Do not lie to me. I need to know everything. And over the last decade and a half, I've been told almost everything. I've been told where bodies are buried. I've been told where things occurred at. I've been told a lot of things. And I'm a secret keeper. Every defense attorney is a secret keeper. That's part of our oath. That's part of our ethical code. Law school doesn't teach you about that. And so delivering bad news comes with an art. First, you have to be honest. Let's just get to it. If you have a case where you're on video or you gave a confession, I may not be able to win at a jury trial. We need to be honest about that. We need to be honest about how do we define victory. Because victory doesn't always look like an acquittal. I wish it did, but it doesn't. So you have to be honest, straightforward, and you have to have a rapport with the client so that at times when it gets tough and times when you have to make those decisions that are life-changing, do you take this plea that is several years in jail, or do you roll the dice and you may never come home? If you have a relationship with the client where they trust you and they know that you're more than a file, then they'll more than likely depend on your advice, even if you're delivering, like I said, unfortunate news. So that's part of my job. I don't like it, but it is a necessary evil. Also, part of being a defense attorney is having client control. And that doesn't mean controlling a person. It just means not letting them drive the ship. And I use this analogy. I'm a pilot during this process. And just like when you get on a plane, the pilot doesn't just take you wherever he wants you to go. You select your destination, but he gets you there. And so once you're seated, you're not allowed to go up there and see what's going on and tell him how to fly the plane. And so to a lesser extent, in my job, the client tells me, I want to resolve the case. I don't want to go to trial, or we're going to go to trial and I can live with the results. And once I have the direction, then I take it from there. Because what I'm trained to do is what I'm good at, and it's what the process is supposed to look like. A criminal defense attorney should also have swagger. I touched on this a little bit with the late Johnnie Cochran. You should dress well. You should represent yourself well. I mean, you're asking someone to trust you with their freedom, sometimes their life. The least you could do is present yourself like a professional, because you are a representative. I tell clients, who you select is important because you inherit their reputation. The judges will see who your attorney is. And like it or not, your reputation precedes you in this profession. That's why lawyers put their names on the outside of their business. They put their names on their business card. You don't see the Augusta Legal Group, the Atlanta Defense Attorneys. You see names because it matters. So you have to have a swagger as a defense attorney. And maybe it came from athletics. Maybe it came from knowing that competition is part of life. But you have to have a quiet confidence, because you're going up against the state. You're going up against the police. You're going up against the resources that taxpayers fund. So you already have a strike against you. And a lot of times, my clients aren't always good boys. They've been in trouble before. So then that comes into play. But you have to believe that you are so good and that you can unravel their case so well that it doesn't matter what you're up against. If you don't have that confidence, you won't make it. It'll grind you up and spit you out. And so the swagger is something that you don't learn in law school. You either have it or you don't. But it's not just swagger that's important, because you don't want to be a nice looking suit. You want to have the substance to go with the style. But you have to know how to deal with pressure as a criminal defense attorney. There's pressure everywhere. There's pressure from your client. There's pressure from your client's family. There's pressure from the prosecutor. There's pressure to move the case from the judge. There's pressure all around. But you have to know how to deal with it and see it for what it is. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to change someone's life. It's an opportunity to make a difference. It's an opportunity to live a meaningful life. And it's a calling. Pressure comes from staying in the moment when things are tough, when the stakes are high. I can't think about the fact that if I don't make the proper objection, my client is gonna face a life sentence and never get out of jail or prison ever. If I think about that, I could never do my job. I'll be paralyzed with fear. I take it piece by piece. You don't eat an elephant in one bite, bit by bit. That's how you handle pressure. And think about it. Do you want to live your life with no pressure at all? What kind of life is that? How do you test yourself and know how well you can handle adversity if you never have pressure? Now, I've gone to the extreme. I wouldn't recommend it for everybody. I've got pressure every day. I've just learned how to live with it and thrive on it because it is a pressure cooker, because you're dealing with people's lives. I haven't had a case since 2017 here in Augusta, Richmond County, where there was not a life sentence as a potential penalty. So you ask for high profile cases, you get high profile cases, but it comes with a cost. So a good criminal defense attorney has to know how to thrive in pressure, like a great athlete. So I want to talk about the process from start to finish of a criminal defense case. Crime occurs. I don't really watch the local news a lot. I used to tune in all the time. But I don't want to know anything about the case before I talk to the client or their family member during a consultation. I want to have a fresh mind. And then once I have contact with the client, then I'll do my research. I'll see what the media is saying. 99% of the time they're wrong. 99% of the time they're wrong. But I want to get a flavor for what's out there. And so we do our consultations. I talk to the client and or a mother, a grandmother, a father, a family member. And then I'm getting a feel for them. I know that they're getting a feel for me and whether they're gonna hire me and retain me. And a lot of times they already have their mind made up because I'm into my career. But at first I would have to really sell why they should hire me. But I'm filling them out too because I wanna know when times get tough, are they gonna listen? Are they going to be humble enough to take counsel? Or are they a know-it-all? Are they looking to fly the plane, or are they looking to tell me the direction in which they want to go, like I said earlier? So you want to pick a client that needs your services, obviously. That's why we do what we do, but you also want to make sure that it's a fit for those intangible personality aspects, because you instantly become the most important person in a stranger's life. How weird is that? I mean, that's crazy. You didn't know me yesterday. You got picked up by the police, accused of a crime. You're sitting in a cage, and your family is trying to find you a lawyer to represent you during the toughest time in your life that you have never met. The selection is made, and now you have to have trust. Most of my days are spent in the courtroom, in courthouses all over the area, and that's an extension of my office. So you have to be comfortable in the courtroom. You have to have a presence. You have to exude confidence, be calm, even when there's every reason not to be calm. Because if you freak out, what do you think your client is gonna do? And so when I get a case, the very first thing that we usually do is try to get them out of jail after I have my meeting with them. So the jail is also an extension of my office. Just yesterday, I was at the jail for 8 hours, meeting with clients. Unfortunately, I had to tell a client that his brother passed away. And that was difficult, but it's part of the job from time to time. I had to tell another client that the best deal that we were gonna get would be 10 years in custody because of him trafficking fentanyl. I got it down from 25 years, but still, he wasn't too happy about it, but it's part of it. And so, even last week, I was at the jail and I got locked in there. I got locked in there for 30 minutes. I was banging on the door. I was trying to get out. I guess that's the cost of doing business. Luckily, I was able to be buzzed out when another attorney was coming in, and I was like, oh my goodness, thank you. He was like, what? What's going on? I said, I've been pushing on the buzzer for 30 minutes. Well, I come to find out it's broken. So people don't see that. They don't make movies about that. That doesn't get put in the TV series, but it's part of it. Being comfortable at the jail, the smells, the face tattoos, the things you hear. If you don't have confidence, the clients will eat you up. So when you walk in there, you gotta walk in there like you know what you're doing and like we have a plan. We have to have a plan. The client wants to hear you have a plan. So we formulate the plan for the bond hearing. I need to know the bad stuff first. My one rule, like I said, tell me the truth. Do not have me in court surprised, because I'm going home to my house at the end of court, regardless. I want to make sure you can go home. But if I'm surprised, if I'm caught off guard because you didn't tell me the truth, which happens, then it's not good. I want to know what happened so I can know what to ask and what to stay away from. So there's that trust again that you have to have. But we formulate a plan and I try to get my client out. A lot of times I'm able to, but sometimes I'm not. And so when you don't get the client out the first time, now we don't have any leverage. Because the only thing they can think about is the fact that they're in this cage. They're in a cage surrounded by dangerous people. See, when you can get them out on bond early on, the leverage shifts to our side. The client can get back to some kind of normalcy. It brings the temperature down, and we can wait out the process. Because usually cases get better on our side as they get a little older. I want the file to have some dust on it before we take it to trial. Now, the exception to that rule was just a few months ago. I had a client who was in jail for 6 years prior to his day of court, his jury trial. We tried to get him out about 7 times. Bond hearing after bond hearing, denied, denied, denied. It was a murder case. It was a total of 4 people charged. 3 of them testified against my client. In November, the jury acquitted him in less than an hour. When he went into jail, his daughter was 3. When he was acquitted, the week before Thanksgiving, he saw her for the first time in person since he was arrested. She's 9 now. What value can you put on missing from ages 3 to 9? You can't. So we didn't have the leverage on our side because he stayed in jail. Couldn't get him out. But sometimes it's worth the wait. He can't get those years back, but we keep in touch. He's working, he's reunited with his sweet daughter, and he's doing well. There's no high like the high of an acquittal when your client is facing life in prison. There's no high like it. Not at all. There's no feeling like it. But if you're truly great, you remember the ones that you didn't win. And I know I've represented over 2,000 people in my career. I've got 5 serving a life sentence. And I think about them every week. I think about them all the time. Sometimes they send me Christmas cards and they write me letters, and they're still going through the appeal process, but you're not a defense attorney until you've had somebody sitting beside you go away for the rest of their lives. Because if you don't feel that, if it doesn't matter to you, you're in the wrong profession. You have to be able to understand the gravity of the work that you're doing. And so that's what's baked into the art of being a criminal defense attorney. Anyone can negotiate with a prosecutor. Anyone can look at pictures, but can you stand tall when it's pressure time? So I never forget those men who trusted me to represent them during the toughest parts of their life. I hope that they get a chance to go back into court. I hope that they're able to have their cases reviewed. But I told them, once a client, always family. Once a client, always family. And I will never leave them. There is nothing in the world like a jury trial. I don't care what anybody says. There's no emergency surgery. There's no election. There's no Super Bowl. There is no examination tougher than a jury trial. Literally, people are coming in to watch you work. People from the street that you have no idea who are going to be judging your work. They come in, we select them, and we present our case to a bunch of strangers with a conclusion at the end. To be judged. Every word that I've ever said in court is recorded. You could look it up. There's a transcript. Every single word. That's our system. There's nothing like a jury trial. And you want to select a fair and impartial jury. That's what we all want to do. I want people who are going to listen, who are not going to assume because you're charged with a crime that you must have done something wrong. I want people who have empathy, who didn't live perfect lives. Know that sometimes people make mistakes, but everybody is worthy of redemption. Those are the jurors that I'm looking for. So as we are selecting a jury when a trial starts, it's called voir dire. It's a beautiful French word. But it's called voir dire, and that means to speak the truth. So we ask the jurors questions about their opinions on certain topics and the alleged crime, and see what biases they have, because everybody has a bias. Everybody does. And the goal is to find jurors to strike from the panel so that you can get a fair group of people. And so an old lawyer told me that as you're selecting a jury, jurors are selecting a lawyer. So you have to be mindful of your demeanor, your appearance, your posture, all those things. So that's why I say it's nothing like a jury trial. Who's coming to your office to see how you sit at your desk? Who's replaying what you said 15 years ago and scrutinizing it like they do on appeals? But it's a privilege to be able to try a case. And the opening statement is the first opportunity to give your spin on what the facts are. You don't want to overpromise because you don't really know how the evidence is going to come out. You want to set some things up. Keep the jury on the edge of their seats. Have confidence in your presentation. Humanize your client. They're more than just the defendant. And after that, we get into the ball game. The state calls their witnesses. As a defense attorney, the most important thing you have to be able to do is cross-examination. That's where we earn our living. A lot of times we don't call witnesses, we respond to their witnesses and the allegations against our clients. And you have to know where you're going in cross-examination. See, as a young lawyer, I would write out my my questions, and I see young attorneys doing this now. They have a script, they have a plan, but they're so involved in the next question that they are not listening to the answer. So you have to listen to the answer, you have to look at the witness, you have to see what makes them squirm, and then you gotta stay there. You got a needle right there. You gotta put up questions where there's no win. There's no way to answer that question in a positive way. So it's the lesser of two evils. That comes with repetition. It comes with knowing your case inside and out, better than the other side. And then after you cross-examine all the witnesses, the jury now has a real idea of which way they're gonna go. But you still have to bring it home. And that's the closing argument. That's what everybody knows. That's what everybody sees. That's the showtime part. Bringing it all together. You have to enjoy the pressure to do well in closing argument. You literally are making an argument as to why your client should not go to prison, sometimes for the rest of their natural life. It involves emotion. It involves intellect. But the biggest thing it involves is passion. And you can't fake that, especially to a group of strangers who are neutral. It's lawyer against lawyer. And sometimes your client puts you in a position where they have made some mistakes that you gotta deal with. But that's closing argument. And then you have to wait. The jury gets the case and they go into the back. And I would love to be a fly on the wall. Maybe one day I'll be selected for a jury. I don't think I will. I don't think any prosecutor will put me on a jury. But it would be great to be on a jury, to know what's really discussed. Sometimes we call jurors after a trial to see why they voted one way or another, but you never really know what the whole dynamic is like. So as you're waiting, sometimes your client is in custody, so you're waiting by yourself. I like to wait in the lawyer's lounge. It's a place where I can sit on the couch, unwind. I know I've done my best and try to stay present. And I think about the consequences. And then you get a call and the bailiff tells you they have a verdict. And sometimes the verdict is quick. And sometimes it takes a while. But there's no feeling like standing up beside your client, your heart beating out of your chest, wondering what the verdict is. And it's so formal, it's like from the 1700s or something. Like they hand a piece of paper to the bailiff walks it over to the judge looks at it, and he looks at the client, and it's almost like torture. He hands it to the clerk, and the judge asks, Mr. Johnson, you and your client stand up to receive the jury's verdict. All right, here we go. And from that very initial client meeting, where I told him, tell me the truth, until we're standing there waiting for that jury verdict, that's the relationship. That's the process. And not every case goes to a jury verdict. But those that do, you never forget. It's like a tattoo. It's like my work. People can see what happened with that case long after I'm not around anymore. That's heavy. And when that verdict is in your favor, you could float. You could float. And a lot of the text I get around the holidays are from those brave souls who trusted me to go to the brink, who trusted me to be on my game, regardless of what was going on in my personal life, to be locked in and focused because this is my gift. And so those are the clients that I never will forget, win or lose. So I want to leave you with this. If the jury trial is one of the fundamental parts of our society and justice system, the key element is you are presumed to be innocent. You are assumed to be innocent. You should walk in there with the cloak of innocence on you. That's what the founders said. That's what the Constitution says. But we know that that's not true. All you have to do is look at these celebrity allegations. You look online, they're already convicted in the court of public opinion. They're already convicted in the news media. No way can they even get out on bond, Sean Combs. Before the trial starts. Before the trial starts. So it may be cute to send those memes. It may make the group chat popping. But think about it. Are you contributing to a society where people don't get a fair shot in court? If he's guilty, let the prosecutor earn it. And then let the chips be what they may. Let the consequences flow. But until that time, the presumption of innocence has to be something that we take sacred, that we take care of. Because it's all good until it's you. I've represented police officers. I've represented millionaires. I've represented gang members. I've represented men. I've represented women. I've represented people as old as 82 years old and as young as 14. The law does not discriminate against who it prosecutes most times. Be one of those people who is not quick to judge. Let the facts come out. Let the chips fall where they may. Do your part. That's what I ask. Well, that wraps up our first episode of the Lawyers Lounge. I really appreciate your time to sit here and listen and engage with us. It's definitely an honor and a privilege to be able to share some of my thoughts. We're gonna have guests, so it just won't be me talking. We're gonna talk about all kinds of things, from sports to politics to current events to philosophy and just right and clear thinking. I wanna be a positive voice, not only in the community, but beyond. So, remember, remain in the present. There's nothing you can do about yesterday, and the future belongs to the good Lord. Salute.